Hello, shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am so excited today because I am going to be talking to a theatrical Jew. Yes, a Jewish person is going to be with us. Not only that, he is in one of the most legendary, or has been, in one of the most legendary Broadway shows of the last couple of decades. He was an original cast member of Rent, but oh my God, he was also in the Elton John musical Aida and the musical comedy Disaster. He was also a cast member of Memphis and Chicago and Something Rotten, and he was recently in Pretty Woman. He's a rock musician and a basic acoustic musician, as a matter of fact. You can go see ADAM PASCAL at the Green Room 42 on two upcoming dates. One day, two shows. Thursday, July 18th at 7 o'clock at 9:30 in the evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the neighborhood, ADAM PASCAL. Shalom, Adam.
Shalom. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, a delight. Thank you. Thank you. And so is your Hebrew name Adan?
Well, if I remember correctly, and I could be completely wrong, I feel like it was Shlomo.
Wait a minute. How
Is that possible?
Unfortunately, with Jewish names, it's very, very possible. But did you ever ask your parents, like, why I'm not like the first guy who's named in the Bible, but instead Shloida?
I didn't ask them. I just accept what I'm told.
Fair. Now, do you have any memories of your bar mitzvah?
Sure, I have lots of memories.
Like?
I remember having to get up at like 4:30 in the morning the week before, and go in and do these sort of whatever particular rites we did in the morning and wrap and fill in. There was all of that stuff that went on in the morning. I remember my bar mitzvah specifically. I remember my Haftorah was the shortest version of a Haftorah I think that you could possibly give.
Oh, you're so lucky. Oh my God, my Haftorah went on for weeks.
Yeah, mine I think was about 10 minutes long.
Well, what was it about? Do you remember did they ever tell you what you were saying in Hebrew, or you just chanted the words?
I wish they did. That they didn't, and I wish that I was more involved in what was going on. But a lot of times kids that age kind of just, unfortunately, they just go through the motions. We were a Reformed Jew family, and it wasn't something that was taken, so seriously. The inner machinations of the bar mitzvah were not particularly paid attention to. So, a lot of times, again, just sort of go through the motions, get through the Haftorah, have the party, and move on.
I hear you. Well, speaking of children, you do have two of your, they're not even children anymore, they're teenagers, but you've got two of your own. Did you raise them in any religion at all?
Well, unfortunately I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because, look, they know they're Jews, and culturally they're Jews, but I didn't raise them with the traditional religious aspect of being Jewish because, I'm quite frankly more of an atheist.
Oh.
And so, whereas I embrace my Jewish cultural heritage, and I'm very proud to be a Jew, I'm not a God-believing person.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm at 6s and 7s here, and even 18s being a Jew. So when you say that you're culturally Jewish, I kind of know what that means, but what does that mean to you?
What it means to me is that, I'm very vocal about being Jewish, and I'm very proud of being part of, a community of such a small community, but such an influential community in this world. And obviously, as you know, many of the greatest inventions and scientific discoveries have been done by Jewish people.
Oh, the corned beef sandwich.
Of course, one of which I love, as long as it's lean enough.
Oh, God. But cut thick, yes.
I'm very proud to be part of that community. And so, I certainly grew up, having a Seder, every Passover, lighting the candles for every Hanukkah, fasting for Yom Kippur.
Oh.
So, we observed those holidays, but we weren't a family that went to shul. We weren't a family that, did sort of more religious aspects of Judaism.
Well, it's all about treating your fellow person right. That's really what it all comes down to. The rules and the rituals. It's just about being nice and understanding of your fellow man, woman, or transgender person thing.
And to be honest with you, that's another one of the things that I love about being Jewish is that you are allowed to take that path within the confines of the religion, and I don't think a lot of other religions are that liberal with their doctrine.
That's right. Sun Myung Moon, never, nothing at all like that. Mm-hmm. If you remember him. Exactly. Now, speaking of small, tight communities, you didn't even expect that you would be a theater person. You were going to be a rock and roller. You were one when Rent kind of magically or sort of accidentally almost fell into your lap, correct?
That's correct, yeah. I was living in New York City at the time and had been playing with my band, the same band, for many, many years since, junior high school. And I got a phone call from another fellow Jew, a Jewess, Aida, who I grew up with on Long Island, and she had been cast in Rent off Broadway, and she said that they were looking for somebody for this particular role. They were having a hard time casting it. It was the role of this guy named Roger. He was a rock singer, and the show was supposed to run off Broadway for about 6 weeks, and she thought it sounded interesting, and she thought the role sounded interesting for me, and asked me if I wanted to go in and audition.
And of course you did, and I think it said, or you said somewhere that your audition piece was a U2 song, not your typical Broadway fake book thing. Yeah. So I mean, but you didn't even realize it. Like, you were so young, you didn't realize that was different and special for an audition for a show.
I kind of didn't know what I was doing, and I think my lack of knowledge and my naivete allowed me to go in there and just be really comfortable. I got to be honest with you, it was the most comfortable I've ever been in an audition since,
Huh.
And so, I was able to just do what I do, and they responded to it. But yeah, I sang a song from the Joshua Tree called Red Hill Mining Town.
But were there callbacks and you had to do other stuff, or it was just one audition and you had it?
No. After my first audition, they gave me a demo recording version of the song "One Song Glory," which is one of the songs that the characters sing in the show. And I had to go home and learn it, and then come back the next day and sing it. And then I had to come back another time and sing it. And then they gave me the song "Your Eyes," which is the song that the characters sing at the end of the show. And then I had to go home and learn that and come back and sing it. So within a 5-day period, there were four auditions.
Whoa.
So I think I had the Wednesday off. So then by Friday, and each time I had come back, there were more people in the room. And so by Friday, I guess everybody and anybody who had to sign off on me was in the room. And I gave my last audition, and that was it.
Now, do you have any memories, because I'm sure you're asked a zillion times, as all the other Rent cast members are, about the night that Jonathan Larson died, and you had to perform, you were opening the next day. But what about memories of him when he was alive? Do you have any anecdotes about the composer of Rent?
Well, I wish that there was more time that I got to spend with him. Unfortunately, I only knew Jonathan for about, I want to say 4 to 6 weeks, because I met him when I was cast in the show. We rehearsed. Actually, it was less than 4 to 6 weeks. It was probably 3 or 4 weeks. So I met him when I was cast in the show. We started rehearsals, and then he passed away the night of our open dress rehearsal. So that was only about 4 weeks later. So I didn't get to know him nearly as well as I would have liked. I can tell you that I certainly spent a lot of time with him in the rehearsal room. I had many meals with him, having lunches, and I remember that was a really dreadful winter. There was tons of snowstorms. I think we had like 18 blizzards that year. That was the winter of 95. And I remember having snowball fights with him and Daphne Vega and Anthony Rapp. And he was just a really sweet, humble but confident guy. Like I said, it was devastating when he passed away, but my sadness was really much more for his family, for his parents, who lost a child, because I didn't know him long enough to really make a strong, sort of brotherhood connection with him.
Fair enough. And let's moving from sort of the sad part of this, Rent had been a part of your life even beyond Broadway. You've toured with it, in fact, to foreign countries like Japan and South Korea. They did the Rent on tour or on Broadway tour thing. There must have been. I mean, when you're doing that show, which is so specifically New York of a certain era, was there any kind of comical disconnect of playing it for people who are in Osaka or Seoul?
Well, what's interesting, I've been to Japan a number of times, done a number of different types of performances. You know, they are so into Western culture and musicals, and I got to be honest with you, I don't know how much of it they understand. Well, I shouldn't say that, because they learn the shows in Japanese. So you know, before you get there, they're already such a fan of the show, and they've learned it in their own native language, and so they don't necessarily understand it literally at the moment it's being performed in front of them, but they know what the song is, you know, what's being said, and you know, so they're very keyed into the material, and so they respond at the jokes, you know, even though they might not necessarily understand every word being said at the time, they respond emotionally at the songs, you know, so the sad parts of the show, they get sad and they tear up and they cry. And they're an amazing audience. The most interesting thing I recall is that, you know, before a show starts and you're standing backstage and you're waiting to go out and start the performance, there's lots of chatter and excitement and noise coming from the audience. You know, people are milling about, they're talking, they're, you know, whatever it is. There's lots of life coming from the audience, and then the lights go down and everybody is quiet. When you're in Japan, it is dead silent before the show starts. Nobody is talking. There's no chatter. There's no life going on out there. It is just complete silence. People sit in silence and wait for the show to start, which was rather unnerving. If you don't look out there, you think that there's nobody out there.
Well, you know, also, if the show is a horrible bomb, they're used to a horrible bomb going off, so they're real quiet. Just kidding.
Good point.
Just teasing.
And actually, they're used to, and this happened, they are used to, you know, the occasional earthquake happening.
Oh.
And so there was actually one time in one of the performances of Rent, when we were in Tokyo, where an earthquake happened while we were on stage. And somehow I was oblivious to it, but it was at a moment in the show where, it was towards the end of the show, it was during the number Take Me or Leave Me, where Joanne and Maureen are singing to each other, and the rest of us are just sitting there watching them. And all of a sudden, I hear people start whispering, and I see people looking around and looking up, and I had no idea what was going on. And they stopped the show, they called everybody off stage, and I was like, what is that? What's going on? Why are you stopping? It was an earthquake, and they, you know, the whole audience is looking up and looking around, and I had no idea what was happening. But there was an earthquake during the show. But you know, they're so used to that kind of thing that they didn't clear the theater. They let it finish.
Really? They're handing everybody an umbrella, and they said, there's a little debris.
Yeah, they
Real
let
deal.
it finish.
Yeah.
Everybody took a deep breath. We went back out on stage and continued the show. It was pretty fascinating.
Now, what are some funny, weird things that have happened to you, or either on stage to the cast or in the audience when you've been in not just Rent, Adam Pascal, but in all these other shows that we mentioned that you have been in?
Yeah, well, you know, look, on stage, I don't think that there's a show that I've ever been in where I haven't fallen on my butt at some point in the performance. So that's, you know, whenever I go into a show, I'm sort of waiting for that to happen. At what point is it going to happen in the run? And generally, it always happens. I remember doing a performance of Cabaret, and Cabaret at Studio 54, one of the things that they did, and I think that they still do, depending on the production, is that they, you know, it was set up as an actual cabaret. So the front half of the theater were little cabaret tables. So people sat at little tables and they were served drinks. And so a lot of people would come during matinees and who are not used to drinking alcohol during the middle of the day. And they would sit there and they would drink and they would party. And they would drink too much. And there was one particular performance that one of the matinees where somebody got sick and vomited all over the table. And so in the middle of the performance, in the middle of one of my songs, I sort of see out of the corner of my eye, everyone get up from the table and go, whoa! You know, and because somebody had just vomited all over the table.
vomit makes the cast go away. The cast go away. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But it was very good because they obviously knew how to handle it. The house people knew how to handle it because they never stopped the show, and they were able to just keep everything as quiet as possible and clean it up, and so that was a funny one. People are always, sometimes people have fights with each other. I can't remember exactly what show I was in, but there was, people that got in a huge argument with each other and started screaming at each other. I remember we did that on the national tour of Something Rotten. We played at Starlight, which is an outdoor theater in Kansas City, and they had to stop the show because of lightning.
Oh.
There was a lightning storm, and so they stopped the performance, and they actually canceled the rest of the performance because of the lightning storm. So there's a lot of interesting things happen when you do live theater, and the audience, I think, unless it's an earthquake or lightning, they generally tend to really appreciate that kind of stuff because they feel like they're part of a special performance where so and so happened the night that they were there. If I've certainly gone off on my lines many times and forgotten lines, forgotten lyrics and songs, and again, audiences kind of it's a little bit of an anecdote for them to tell, like, oh, I saw that show, and also so and so happened the night that I was there.
Right, because 8 shows a week, it happens over and over again, but they have that one night in the whole history of the universe that bum happened.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, the night I was there was an earthquake. So they get an extra little special anecdote.
Now, you were coming out of Rent, for which, by the way, you were Tony nominated, Mazel Tov, and in fact, you were Drama Desk nominated as well. You won a Theater World Award for that. You come out of that, you got the world is your oyster, as it were, and yet you figured, now let me do the rock music again, as opposed to going directly, on a theater track, yeah?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the next thing I did was Aida, but there was a big, there was a break in between Rent and Aida, and actually, right after Rent on Broadway, I went to London and I opened the show in London for about 6 months. But then I came back, and look, everybody in the original cast of Rent, who the show became so big, so successful, everyone used that as their springboard to whatever it is that they wanted to do in their career. And I came into the show with sort of dreams of getting a record deal and playing in a rock band. And so when I finished in Rent, I still had that in my head. And so I was hoping that this would be my springboard to a nice big record deal and and a career in rock music. And that didn't happen. That just for whatever reason that still had eluded me. I think that the record industry looked at me now and thought, well, this guy's a musical theater guy. What are we going to do with him? Ironically enough. And so, I still struggled with that. And but I had a band and I played lots of shows, but it just wasn't happening for me. And then along came this opportunity. I didn't know if I wanted to continue doing musical theater, but the next thing that was presented to me was this Elton John musical. And having been and still am, a massive Elton John fan, it just seemed like the next logical step for me. And so it was another combination of rock and roll and theater.
I just think it's kind of fun because you've mentioned in other places that one of your favorite bands is Queensryche. And it's sort of hard to balance those two. Elton John, Queensryche. And yet...
that's true. They don't necessarily connect.
Yeah. Kind of like Lou Reed and Metallica. And yet sometimes it happens,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so that was a great next logical step for me to go in my theater.
Now, please tell me that you have an Elton John story.
I do have an Elton John story. Elton, there's a moment in the show where it's called My Strongest Suit, and it's this big production number that is modeled after a fashion runway show. And so when we were at our out-of-town tryout in Chicago, the music that was accompanying that number was pre-recorded. I don't know why they decided to do that, but they pre-recorded that particular number. And so Elton hated that idea, and he always said, I don't want this to be pre-recorded. I want the orchestra to play it. I want the orchestra to play it. And for whatever reason, they didn't heed to his desire. And so when we were on Broadway in our previews, or it might even have been after we opened he came to one of the performances, and it comes to that number, and the music is still pre-recorded, and he freaks out, and he gets up, and he storms out of the theater. And so, but when Elton gets up and storms out of the theater, it's Elton and his entire entourage of 20 people. And you know what theaters are like. You can't just, you can't subtly get up and walk out of the aisle in the middle of the performance. It causes a huge kerfuffle. The seats are so small, the seats are so tight, people have to get up and let you out.
It happens to me every Saturday at my sermons in the shul. Believe me, it's so annoying.
Get up and leave, right?
Yeah.
So it caused this huge thing, which ended up being in the New York Post the next day. That Elton got up and stormed out of Aida. So it caused a big to do. But I will say, in his defense, he came back the next night and he came around to my dressing room and to Heather Hensley's dressing room and to Sherry Renee Scott's dressing room, and he apologized personally to each one of us for his behavior. And I thought that was an incredibly gracious thing to do.
Well, we are talking to the very gracious and graceful ADAM PASCAL, who, by the way, or not by the way, you must go see him on Thursday night, July 18th at the Green Room 42, which I believe is on 42nd Street. It would be kind of dumb if it weren't. The Green Room 42. He's doing two shows, the 7 o'clock and the 9:30. Are you doing the same set list? Are you varying? What are people going to see when you do the show?
Well, this is a show that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it really is a literal retrospective of all the shows that I've been in. So I've done 9 Broadway musicals, and this is a song from each musical that I've been in. There are several shows in which I'm performing a song that wasn't a song of mine in the show, but it is a song from the show. So it really is, a retrospective of all of that. And people have been asking me to do that for a long time, and I've always been not resistant to it, but I haven't gotten to putting that set list together. So it is going to be the same show, the 7 and the 9:30 show. And I talk about each show before the song, and I open up the performance to questions from the audience. So I think it's a much more intimate and interactive type of performance that people are used to seeing me do.
Is it just you on guitar, or do you have a couple of other people, or what?
It is just me on guitar.
Cool. Now, you mentioned that your rock music career didn't quite happen the way you expected or hoped. You do have some albums out, correct?
I do. Yeah, I have some solo albums out. I have 3. They're available on iTunes. 2 solo records and one called Me and Larry, Blinding Light. And I'm also on lots of cast recordings and compilation CDs. So if you just go to iTunes, you type in my name, a whole bunch of things will come up.
Well, I'm kind of curious, what are 1 or 2 songs that you have written that you are the most proud of, you feel are your best work?
There's a song called I'm With You, which is on my second solo record called Civilian. And I think that's probably the best, in my opinion, the best song that I've ever written. And it's a song that was written about becoming a father right after 9/11.
Oh.
That was an incredible experience, and it was a very frightening, experience at the same time. And, because obviously, as we all know, the world changed dramatically in that, on that one day.
Well, since you bring it up, where were you, at 10 to 9 that morning?
I was watching TV at my house in Mount Vernon in Westchester, and I sat, glued to the television for probably 18 hours watching the coverage of the attack, and it affected me to this day. I have felt the effects of watching that, watching all of that footage to this day. I'm still on a heavy dose of antidepressants from having witnessed that for 18 hours.
Are you joking or no?
No, I'm not joking.
Oh, wow. Okay. So did you have those kinds of issues even before 9/11, and that just brought them to?
I did, and I really do think I have PTSD, and I think a lot of people do who witnessed all of that and watched all of that. How could you not? It's like soldiers at war witnessing the horrors that they witnessed and coming back with PTSD. Well, people who sat there glued to the television and watched these horrors happen in front of their eyes hour after hour, I don't see how you could
And they now show the videos. They airbrush out the people who are jumping from the windows to their deaths. But back when it was live, it was live.
Unfortunately for me and millions of others, that wasn't airbrushed out when I was watching it.
Wow, that's now I'm going to need some antidepressants. Oh my God, let's do something happier. Mostly you've done either the rock music or as a matter of fact, people can even see you in the movie School of Rock because you had a band.
Right.
By the way, was that a real band or a band created for School of Rock, the No Vacancy thing?
That was a band created for the movie, but I did all the vocals, for the music that the band sang.
Cool.
So that's actually me singing, but the band was casted with actors.
Right, but the other thing I wanted to is, even though you haven't done much in the way of film, you were in a movie that is now called Falling Star.
Yeah.
But it had a different name.
Yes, it was called Goyband.
Goyband!
Goyband, yeah.
Tell us about this film.
Yeah, this film was written by, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name, but he was an Israeli writer, and he wrote this film about this ex-boy band rock star who is down on his luck and has not had a flourishing career after the breakup of the boy band. And he gets a job performing at one of the kosher Jewish Catskill resorts that don't exist anymore. But like Kutsher's. I've actually gone to Kutsher's a number of times in my life.
Yes.
But for those of people who don't know, and I'm sure there's not many of them who listen to your podcast, but for many years, in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, there were many resort hotels up in the Catskill areas that catered to the Jewish community. And all the food was kosher, and it was predominantly Jews who went to these hotels. And so he gets a job in one of these hotels, and obviously he's not a Jew. And it's a very much a sort of fish out of water tale. And we actually shot it at a non-working
a former country club. Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember which one it was. But these hotels were fascinating. They were sprawling and they were beautiful and they were all self-contained with a pool, giant pool of tennis courts and restaurants, and people would come there with their families, and it was a unique experience for the Jewish community. Anyway, the movie was a lot of fun, and it was very, it was a lot of fun to do because I connected with so much of it, so many of the references, and so many of the situations that the characters put in, I connected with so much of them.
Well, we're talking, we have just a couple more minutes with ADAM PASCAL, and one thing people, I'm sure, always want to know is, like, when you're in such an amazing, pressurized but remarkable thing like the original Rent, it becomes so iconic that people want to know, how often are you in touch with the other cast members of the show?
Well, Anthony Rapp and myself are still very close, and I'm in touch with him quite often because we do a lot of performances together. So we do sort of a double bill show where we go out and we each do our own individual set, and then we do songs together at the end of the show. We do a whole sort of like little 20-minute Rent section at the end of the show, and we've been doing that for a number of years. And I just did one with him a few months ago. We tend to do about 10 shows a year, sometimes 20 shows a year together. So I see him quite often, and I'm very in touch with him. Jesse Martin and myself are still very much in touch. He is in Vancouver shooting a TV show, but we speak a lot and we text a lot, and he and I have been very close for many years. So I would say that those two guys are the ones that I'm most in touch with.
Right. And by the way, we've had Wilson Germain Heredia on this program, and your old girlfriend, Daphne Rubin Vega, she was on the show many years ago. So it's sort of old home week here on Dave's Gone By as well. So, but you all, even if it's a Christmas card sort of, or a Hanukkah card, I should say, email, you keep in touch even with the other people, yeah?
We do, and there was just that Rent Live performance on Fox that happened several months ago, and they reassembled the original cast to do a special cameo at the end of the show, and it was such an amazing experience for the 15 of us to get back it was such an amazing experience for those of us to get back together and see each other and reconnect. It was like, it was like a family reunion. It was like, you haven't seen a lot of these people in many years, but it's like no time has gone by in that interim when you get back together. So it was really a wonderful, wonderful experience to see everybody that I hadn't seen in many years.
Do you think it's possible that there might be, for one-off concerts and benefits kind of, you'll still be occasionally doing Roger, like in your 60s?
I would never say never to anything. I find it highly unlikely. But, I would never say never.
Well, let me remind people one more time that you can go see Adam Pascal live singing with his guitar directly to you from the stage of the Green Room 42. That this is happening one night only, but twice on that night. Thursday, July 18th. There's a 7 o'clock show. There's a 9:30 show. So those of you with children do the 7. Those of you who have lives go do the 9:30. But either way, go see Adam Pascal. And the other question is, where will we be able to see you either on stage or in a film over the next weeks or months ahead? What's on your schedule?
Well, right now I'm sort of trying to spend some time at home with my family. We have a summer vacation coming up. So these shows that I'm doing back east, I have a number of them. Obviously the ones you mentioned in New York City. I'm playing some other ones up in Saratoga and Long Island. So I have a bunch of these shows coming up. And then that's it. I'm taking it easy for the summer, and then I'll see what happens in the fall. So nothing in the immediate future other than these acoustic shows.
Now, when you mentioned Mount Vernon before, aren't you in LA or did you move from there?
I am in LA. We used to live in Mount Vernon, right on the border of Mount Vernon and Bronxville. And so we were there for a number of years before we moved down here to Los Angeles.
So much of what you do is on the East Coast, though. Does it still make sense to stay in Los Angeles, or are you getting enough work in TV film that, better stay there?
Oh, I just do a lot of traveling. When I come back from Broadway, I usually sublet an apartment. And so, look, even if I lived in New York, I would still be doing a ton of traveling because a lot of my work is around the country and different, doing these live shows in different cities. And so, but we decided, all those years ago to give Los Angeles a try and see what it's like living out here. And we just decided we really loved it out here. We loved the weather. My kids loved it out here, so we stayed. Jews need to complain, and if you're in LA, there's not that much to complain about except traffic. I don't know how you manage. I find plenty of things to complain about. Don't worry.
Oh, good. See, you're still Jewish underneath. The God thing will work on, but the culture you still have.
I'm carrying the mantle.
There you go. Well, everybody, we have been delightfully carrying the bima that Adam Pascal has been on. Go see him on July 18th at Green Room 42. Adam Pascal, it just remains for me to thank you so much for being so much fun and delightful in the neighborhood, and shalom to you.
Shalom to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.